Okay, Venkat, let's just dive into the agenda. What does the 2-day agenda look like for PI planning? And now it might be 3 days with remote,
With the remote happening. Yeah, because
3 or even 4 days, right? So what are the high levels of like the agenda of the PI?
Yep. So one thing I would like to start with is before this all happened, before this emphasis on remote collaboration came in, the peer planning is usually a 2 days agenda, 2 full days agenda. And believe me, 2 days is worth. Many people tweak it. We don't have time. Can we make it one day? Can we make it half a day? But having it for 2 full days, it's really worth. So let us take that, instead of taking as day one agenda and day two agenda, let's take part one agenda and part two agenda, because we might, given the situations right now, we don't have to have day one and day two, because we might have to manage our time, what goes on the first day, what goes on the second day. So it might not, sometimes it might be 2 full days we can manage if there are more agile teams, mature agile teams, right? But that's very hard, because remote collaboration takes more time, at least to start with these days, right? So that definitely it's going to be a bit crunch and difficult for 2 days. So let's take it as part one agenda and part two agenda. So the part one agenda starts with, as we were discussing earlier, it starts with the business owner coming in and giving the business context, business goals. The different ways of conveying that is, talking about the SWOT analysis, and the business vision, talking about the competitors, talking about what difference we need to make. So that's about the first starting point, as we were saying, business context. Then comes the product vision, along with what are the top features, prioritized features we need to plan for, and seek agreement and alignment from the teams, which is conveyed by the product manager again. And supporting to that product vision, the next event happens is the architecture vision, which we talked about. The solution architect comes in and talks about how should the technical stack be to support the product vision, which in line satisfies or helps our business goals to be met. So business context, product vision, architecture vision. So what happens is, then comes the planning context, wherein the RTE, who is facilitating this entire thing, is going to introduce, because not everyone or not anyone knows who is what. As I was saying, the face-to-face communication, the relationships, we know names, we don't know the faces. Sometimes we know the faces, but we don't know the name. We know name, we know the face, but we don't know the responsibility of the role they are playing in. Right. So this is where the planning context comes, and the RT introduces key participants so that everyone knows. So who is the system architect? He's Vivek Khatri. He's a system architect, right? XYZ is a business owner. Someone else says he's the product manager. Someone says he's another facilitator. He's an SME in this area. So that interaction has to happen, so that everyone knows who they have to reach, the right person to reach when they have a question or a clarification or any guidance to be seen. Right. So after that is done, what happens is taking in these top 10 features, or top prioritized features, the teams start to plan their iterations. So that event is called team breakouts. Now here comes the challenge. Especially during this remote PI planning, right? And we have tools, and Zoom, for example, it gives a very beautiful feature, breakout rooms, right? So we can have one parent meeting going on, and then when the team breakout comes, we can get into breakout rooms, create their own team rooms. And so team breakouts is all about getting a feature, understanding what that team can contribute to complete that feature, and deducing that feature into user storage, which they can accomplish.
And Venkat, this is just a 3 hours meeting, right?
This is 3 hours team breakouts, yeah. And we need to be cognizant about it. And one of the important, as we were talking, one of the important duty of the Scrum Master is to make this time box.
Right. So there's time boxes. So just to kind of, summarize what you said. So business context, business owners comes with a business context. Then we go into, so that's an hour meeting, hour and a half meeting for the product vision. So the product presents the product vision.
Yeah.
So, and there's another hour meeting that is the architecture vision and development practices. And then for another hour and a half, it is planning, context, and launch. So that's kind of built into the agenda. And then the 3 hours is the team breakout. So this is going into 7 hours of the day if you were to do in one day. And out of the team breakouts, you're saying that team members are working on the user stories, maybe looking at what do they look like what are the part of that features that they selected.
Correct. How can that feature be decomposed into user stories, refine them, and just understand to the extent that they can estimate into story points, estimate them, identify significant dependencies. When they are refining these user stories, understanding the user stories, it's that point they understand the dependencies with other teams.
Got you.
Go align those dependencies, and then update the program board there.
Got you.
That's what happens in teams breakout. And at the end of the teams breakout, each team will come up with their draft PI objectives, their draft iteration plan, and based on that plan, what are the objectives they are trying to accomplish.
Got you.
Right. So that's how the session ends that day. And then what happens is we let all the hands-on teams, like the development teams, leave for the day, take rest for coming back. Right now, we have other stakeholders like the product manager, the POs, the scrum masters, the business stakeholders, the RT, everyone stay back for another 45 1 hour minutes. And then what we do that time is called something called as management review. And that's basically to understand what we all have learned by going through the plans of each team.
Got you.
What we have learned by going through the objectives of each team. What have we learned? What are the risks we saw that the teams have brought in? How should we solve for that risk? What are those decisions to be made to make the team come tomorrow and come up with a better plan?
Right. And I have a question, Venkat, here if you go draft plan review, so in that review, is the team pitching, or what does that review look like, especially in remote environment, right?
Yeah. So what happens is, so this draft plan review, it's basically done by the product manager, the POs, and the business stakeholders can accompany. But it is basically on this part one of draft plan review is done with the product manager. Now, when the product manager comes, he looks at the team, explains the plan, what features they have taken up, how they have broken up into user stories, and how are they planning to deliver those user stories accomplishing that feature, and what are the significant dependencies, and if there are any risks which they want to bring in, they also talk about that. This is the risk. Sometimes we don't know the tool to be used, the decision has to be made. Right, something like that. We don't have enough licenses, we have to procure those licenses. Right, something like that. So understanding that, why PM comes and looks at is because he's the one who is giving the product vision. So he needs to guide the team, direct the team to a better plan, and because objectives are important, not the outputs. Right. So the PM is coming along the POs, and the team it's a conversation basically.
100%.
Yeah. So the management review is all about making those decisions between that time and the next start. The next event starts. Part 2, which we call as now, right? The part 2 starts. What are the different decisions to be made? What are the adjustments to be made between now and then, so that the team comes back and refines that plan to be a better plan.
Got you. And then this is all hands on. So that, let's say if we're imagining Zoom, this is maybe RT facilitating. Right. This is what we came up with on the part 1, day 1 of the agenda. This is what we accomplished. So now what do we need to adjust? So what kind of adjustments are we talking about?
So we are talking about adjustments about the scope, rescoping and descoping, of features. We also talking about reprioritizing and deprioritizing the features. We also talking about based on the risks, based on the rescoping, descoping, and reprioritizing and deprioritizing features. We are also talking about any adjustments to be made to the product vision. We are also talking about people movement here. So when I say people movement, it's not about moving Vivek from this team to this team.
Got you.
What we are talking about is how can we make Vivek, who is a part of this particular team, more closer to this team. If he is remote, can we bring him into the office? I mean, in this situation, it might not work. It's not more relevant talking about people movement here.
Right.
But when the office resumes, right? So we are talking about people. If many organizations have team members working remote, or
Right.
maybe in another location, is it fruitful enough? Is it more valuable if Vivek comes and sits with the team here?
Right.
So those adjustments.
Right. And that's a whole different conversation. And this is where I think we need to be agile in terms of adjusting and responding to change because of COVID. So, okay, great. And then,
so after that, it's the responsibility of the PM and the RTE to take note of these things, decisions made, document or record them basically, and get the acceptance from the entire stakeholders. And then the next part 2 starts.
Part 2 of the team breakout.
Part two of the peer planning. Part 2 of the peer planning starts with communicating these planning adjustments. And it is very important. It starts with communicating these adjustments because it is the input for the teams to take in those adjustments, understand those adjustments, and refine their plans.
Gotcha.
So the PM comes, the RTE and the PM come, they take the ownership of communicating these planning adjustments which we made yesterday. And then the next event is again the final team breakout. Based on these adjustments which were communicated, the teams go back, they look back into their plan and they refine those plans. So the existing risks which they pointed out yesterday might go off. There might be new risks which might come up. The dependencies might have been addressed. There might be new dependencies which might come up.
Right.
The magnitude or the level of risk might be reduced, or sometimes it might be whatever. So all these inputs, which planning adjustments, which we take as input, it is all to refine the final plan. And the end of this team breakouts is where they come up with the final plan and the final PI objectives for each teams. Okay, so that's very important. That's again, it's another 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. This thing. Then comes now the final plan review. Okay, the final plan review is done by the business owner because now that the final plan is done, he needs to know what is the business value the team is committing to generate by planning out these features. So he needs to understand. So it's the business owner who comes, and he's the one who goes through and he understands each team's PA objectives. And there's an activity which is called business value assignment. We may dig deeper there. So it's for the business owner to show the team how important is those objectives to his business goals.
That's
so business value assignment happens.
And then
the lunch happens.
Situation they would have like lunch in that time. Okay.
Now comes the important thing. What are the final risks?
Program risk. Got you.
Program risks. We talk about, so we have to, each program will be taken up, discussed upon, understood well. And then, if there is any resolution which can be made, we decide upon that. If there is any mitigation workaround, whatnot, we discuss upon that. And, we bucket them. Basically, we bucket all those risks into 4 buckets called resolved, owned, mitigated, and accepted. That's called as a Rome exercise there. And then, so we planned out. We know the features. We've decomposed into stories. We planned our iterations. We came up with PA objectives. The business value assignment happened. The business owner accepted those PA objectives. We discussed upon the risks. We bucketed them. Now what? The plan is ready. Now with this plan, with this risk discussed, with this objectives accepted the business owner, how confident are we that the plan we made can be successful? That's a confidence vote, which each team demonstrates for its own. And once that is done, the entire program team gives that confidence vote.
So when we say we, so it's the development team,
Yes.
teams, they say how confident do they feel, and then the entire program
Yes. Interact. Right. Now, this seems to be very simple exercise, but it's very important to get this shared commitment. Right. So as one team, we are confident. We are committing to this plan. We are saying we are confident. As the entire program team, we are saying the entire PR objectives, the entire feature, the entire program goal looks good. We are confident about it. Right? That gives a confidence for the stakeholders also to assume that predictability and commit to the customers. So that gives a good predictability.
Got you.
Right. So that's how the conference goes on. And then comes the if the conference is low, if there is a varied conference level, then there might be a need for plan rework.
Right. So in a fist of 5 group exercise, if there's 2s or 1s.
Yeah. If the weightage of 2s and 1s is more, then we might need to ask them, well, how can we increase? What makes you feel low confidence? How can we help for you to get that to that confidence level?
So going back to transparency and creating shared understanding. Okay, what is the challenge? Let's hear it out. And how do we need to rework the plan? Got you.
Exactly. That's the thing. So once that is done, I think we are all good. So once the conference is reached, that's good. So we are all confident. That's what the commitment is coming from. Now, for any event, SAFE has, or for that matter, any agile philosophies has the intent of continuous improvement. SAFE emphasis on relentless improvement. Come what may, I have to improve. That's the relentless improvement.
100%.
Right. So for this event, which happened, what are our learnings? How can we make the next PI planning better?
Right.
So that's the retrospective which happens, and retrospective is not for the plan; it's for the planning event by itself.
So in this last 2 days, or let's say 3 days, if they did it remotely,
right?
What are some things happening? What are some improvements that we need to do for the next PI planning? What are some things that we can do right away so that we can set it up?
Yes.
For the next one.
How could we do better PI planning event next time?
Got you.
So that there ends. So once that is done, the items from the retrospective goes into the program backlog because we need to improve.
Got you.
Right. So we need to take action items, put it to the program backlog, prioritize them, and show improvement in the next PI planning. There ends the PI planning, and believe me, 2 days, when we say, or whatever the 2 parts, the time investment in this, it's really valuable.
Yep.
We can feel the difference if it is done right. It is really valuable.
Yeah, a lot of ahas, developers and business talking, which is one of the agile principles, having a business context, understanding what's really, really important, what's the must-haves, and also at the same time understanding how the developers are feeling, how confident do they feel about this plan. So yes, definitely can be impactful. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We will sure to come back with more exciting videos on agile topics.